Hey everyone, and welcome to This Explainer. Today we're diving deep into a beautifully captured everyday dilemma. It's something that is universally relatable, incredibly frustrating, and honestly, fundamentally vital. We're talking about the friction of electoral roll verification. You know, that exact highly specific moment when the vast, complex, and sometimes unfeeling machinery of the state literally lands right on your front doorstep. It's stressful, it's messy, and it's a story with two very distinct, very human sides. We're going to unpack this whole fascinating dynamic today, looking closely at the people on both sides of the door.
Okay, let's dive right into this. Picture the scene because it sets the perfect atmosphere for everything we're about to discuss. It's noon. It's pouring rain outside. You're inside, just going about your day, and suddenly knock, knock, knock. A loud knock at the door. The booth-level officer, or BLO, has arrived with a monsoon tune and a little form for you to sign. Now, the monsoon tune here isn't just about the literal rain pelting down on their umbrella, right? It's a metaphor for the dreary, relentless nature of the work itself. Outside, there's a literal storm, but inside the house, the arrival of this official creates an immediate, sudden storm of anxiety, frantic searching, and just scrambling for paperwork.
Section 1. The knock on the door when bureaucracy arrives. That single knock we just talked about is so powerful because it represents the jarring arrival of administrative processes into our private, everyday lives. It creates immediate tension, completely disrupting a quiet routine with a sudden, rigid demand from the state. And amidst the wet forms and the frantic scrambling for signatures, the source text highlights that this entire process really boils down to one single, profound fear uniting every citizen facing this verification. Will my vote still be here? The underlying anxiety isn't just about the annoyance of finding the right paperwork. It's way deeper than that. It's about the very real, terrifying fear of being erased from the democratic system entirely. It's that sudden panic of becoming invisible to the state.
Section 2. The citizen's paperwork struggle. The weight of proof.
So let's look a little closer at the first perspective in this dual narrative, because suddenly the sheer, overwhelming burden is placed entirely on you, the citizen. You have to prove your identity, your history, and your existence to a system that seems to have completely forgotten you overnight. Just imagine the messy, physical reality of this kind of record-keeping. You're digging through, let's say, 7 disorganized drawers, your vital documents sharing space with rats and spores. You pull out one document and it says one thing. You find another and it says something completely different. Maybe a name is misspelled, or your address doesn't perfectly match the flat you're currently standing in. It perfectly illustrates the chaotic, stressful reality of maintaining personal archives over decades, and that sudden panic when you have to produce the exact right paper on demand.
And this quote brilliantly illustrates the generational frustration involved in all this scrambling. Grandpa says, "I voted twice, since black and white and cheaper rice." Think about the emotional exhaustion here. It is incredibly frustrating for someone who has historically participated in democracy for decades, someone who remembers times long gone, to suddenly be forced to prove their past all over again just to maintain their fundamental rights. You've got someone who has been voting since the era of black and white television, and now even with modern tools like an Aadhaar card or a modern voter ID in their pocket, the journey to just stay on the list is still incredibly hard. The absolute irony of a lifelong voter having to prove they actually exist to a young officer standing on their porch is just palpable.
Now, what's really interesting is that the moment we open that door, the script flips completely. The BLO standing in the rain says, "Help me too, I've got 1,000 homes to do." It makes us realize the officer standing out there in the downpour is equally exhausted and overwhelmed. They aren't some cold, unfeeling machine dispatched by the government. They're a tired person stuck in the exact same parade, just searching for a photocopied shade like everyone else. They are likely just as anxious about completing their massive route as the citizen is about finding their documents.
Section 3. The officer's endless parade. The logistical nightmare.
It's really crucial to look at this impartially. Just as the citizen struggles with their 7 drawers of disorganized documents, the frontline officer faces immense physical and logistical hurdles out in the field trying to verify thousands of people. Let's walk through the specific roadblocks they encounter on a daily basis. First, you have migrant workers who are simply out of town, making verification impossible right off the bat. You have locked apartments with their shutters pulled tight, requiring the officer to make 3 or more return visits with absolutely no luck. Their scooter is likely stuck in the mud from the monsoon rain. And then there's the technology itself. They're forced to use government apps that refuse to load on bumpy internet roads, requiring front and back document uploads only for the central server to crash at the absolute worst possible moment, essentially spitting back an error message that says, "Come tomorrow, Jack."
All of these physical and technological roadblocks create what we can basically call the officer's trap. The officer is running down every single lane, practically begging citizens to just hear them out, all while walking an impossible tightrope. It's the ultimate catch-22. Think about it. If they rush through their massive daily quotas to keep their superiors happy, they will inevitably make mistakes and be penalized for being wrong. But if they're slow, meticulous, and take the time to ensure every single record is perfectly accurate, well, they won't meet their targets and they won't last long in the job. It's a beautifully empathetic look at the sheer pressure placed on a frontline worker who is really just trying to do their job without getting fired.
Let's move to Section 4 and see how this builds. The shared bureaucratic blues, 2 sides, 1 punchline.
When you put these two narratives side by side, you realize pretty quickly that the citizens and the officers are not actually enemies at all. On the left side of the door, the citizen simply wants to stay inside, out of the storm, secure in their identity and their democratic rights. On the right side of the door, the officer is on this endless, exhausting paperwork ride, wanting nothing more than to just finish their grueling route. The citizen desperately needs trust from the system, while the officer desperately needs time to actually do their job properly. Ultimately, they're both trapped in the exact same clunky, unyielding administrative machine.
And it all culminates in what the source beautifully terms the SIR blues. For a bit of context, SIR here stands for Summary Institutional Revision, which is the massive, tedious, bureaucratic process of updating the electoral rolls. And it gives everybody the blues. Some people are worried, some are mad, some just think the timing is completely terrible. Everyone is dealing with old rolls, new rolls, missing names, and missing goals. It's a shared frustration of files, forms, and endless queues, where everyone involved, the grandfather in his living room and the BLO on the porch, is equally a victim of the bureaucratic red tape.
Section 5. What democracy should mean. Building trust anew.
So let's zoom out for a second from the micro level of these individual rain-soaked doors and look at the macro level. What does this tedious, frustrating process actually mean for the concept of democracy as a whole? Well, the crucial point is the ultimate goal, captured right here. Clean the list, but keep us seen. That is what we're striving for, isn't it? Achieving a fair system where we get it right, where the voter lists are perfectly accurate and up to date, but absolutely no one's vote is allowed to simply disappear through a random clerical error. The plea here is to build a system that stops making people from every town and every lane endlessly prove their existence over and over again.
As the door closes with a sigh from the citizen and a tired grin from the BLO saying, "See you all in revisions," we really have to look at the bigger picture. Thank you so much for joining me on this explainer. I hope this structured look at the verification dilemma provided some serious clarity and food for thought about the systems we navigate every single day. I want to leave you with one final thought as we close out. If we must constantly prove our right to exist in the system, who is the system really serving?